Hello, and welcome to the Narrowing Path, Walking the Spiritual Walk. My name is Steve Van Eiderstein. Thank you all for joining me today as I go through and do today's review of the fourth chapter of James Allen's book, As a Man Thinketh, which is Thought on Purpose, I believe. Full name? Thought and Purpose, not on, excuse me. I am grateful for everyone jumping on and watching the videos and being part of this whole thing. Is really cool. I do want to apologize. This video is actually coming a week late. And that is because I was horrendously sick last week. I did record one, but the amount of times I coughed and had to wipe my nose and all these other things, it wasn't working. I figured it would be for the best to wait. So for anyone that was wondering where this one was or why I was coming late, that is why I had the flu. Grand old time, let me tell you. So February has actually been a very illness-laden month for me. So I'm glad we're into March now. And I'm glad that we have this opportunity this weekend. So I'm going to go into it and kind of go from there. Don't forget to give us a like and a subscribe on our Facebook page or on our right here on the YouTube channel. Give the Facebook also a like and check out the podcast on Spotify and Apple Music. So I do not have the other book with me today. I left it at the one that has all the highlighting and things that I've been using. So I'm going to be using the copy I read out of. It doesn't have any of the marks in it, but it's such a short chapter. I'm pretty much going to be reading every paragraph as we go through it anyway, because it's a very short chapter and there's just every paragraph's jam-packed with stuff. So I'm excited to go through this chapter. This is getting to the parts that are still very, very, all of it's very relevant for me, but I feel like these things have progressed in their meaning and understanding the longer I've been practicing them. So, getting to thought and purpose, and next would be thought and achievement, and then vision and ideals, and then serenity. There's a lot of fantastic information in here. So we'll be pretty much going through it line by line as the chapters are pretty short. So here we go. This is my video review for the fourth chapter of the book As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. And the chapter is titled Thought and Purpose. Now, like I said, I did the reading 2 weeks ago now. I skipped last week with a video. And I hope y'all had a opportunity to take a listen to it, or at least once, if not multiple times, because it starts out, this chapter starts out with a line that some quote is the most impactful in the book. It's definitely one of my favorites. I think I think it's very difficult to pick out a single quote from James Allen in this book that would be the quote, right? Except for maybe the line he extrapolates this entire book from, the "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he," that he initially talks about. So, but this first line, "Until thought is linked with purpose, there's no intelligent accomplishment." Just think about that. I had to. It was a quite profound statement, and it still is, but especially the first time that I read it. Until thought is linked with purpose, there's no intelligent accomplishment. It wasn't until I realized my mind was a tool for me to be using, like my body's a tool. My understanding of what the mind was has changed as I've progressed in my spiritual journey, as I've grown in my awareness and understanding of this human condition, we can say. I really always thought I was my mind, and I don't believe that to be true anymore. I believe I was given a mind and a body to use. And that started to set in for me when someone said, I'm not the thinker of the thoughts. I'm the one that chooses which thoughts to think. I'm the space between thoughts. I'm the one that decides which thought to focus on. When I realized the truth in that statement, I realized this brain I have is an untamed landscape of insanity. It was, at least. It's getting a little bit better today. But this line, until thought is linked with purpose, there is no intelligent accomplishment. I just let my brain run rampant, think about whatever I wanted to think about with no intention or direction. And when when I give my brain that full allowance to just do whatever it wants to do, it usually takes me to a place of fear and worry. It usually takes me to a place of concern, and it's making up all these scenarios that don't need to be made up. So this meant something to me when I read it, because I would never give purpose to my thinking. I thought I was just the victim of my own thinking. Whatever thoughts I had, I had. We talked earlier about this in one of the chapters where I had to start becoming aware of what I was feeding my brain, what I was putting in it and around it. That includes the people, the music, the books, the job I work. Everything that I do is feeding my mind and is directing it what way I is going to be thinking and predisposed, right? So I had to start taking control of those things and only putting in the stuff I want to be able to think about, and only putting in the things that serve me. The mind is a garden, and it will grow stuff. Seeds will fall into it. You either are intentional about the seeds you plant, or you let life just strew whatever in there, which today means it comes from the news and society and social media, which is a lot of fear mongering and negativity and very skewed perspective. So thought, your mind, thoughts you think, can be linked with purpose. And when that happens, you can make an intelligent accomplishment. You can make progress. You can actually have a directed line of thinking. That would be a benefit. That was a benefit for me. That was something that I didn't fully grasp. But now I know it's possible. I know it to be true because it's changed for me. So that was through a lot of reading. That was through a lot of conversation. That was through a lot of meditation too. I do want to stress the importance that meditation's had in my journey. To be able to focus the mind, concentrate. It's been an amazing journey. So, all right, that's just the first sentence of this chapter. I guess we should probably just keep going. With the majority of the bark of thought, the bark of thought is allowed to drift upon the ocean of life. So most people, they just let their active thinking just drift. They don't take it and give it purpose. Aimlessness is a vice, and such drifting must not continue for him who would steer clear of catastrophe and destruction. If you're just letting your mind drift wherever the world directs it to go, you're going to end up in these dark places of catastrophe and destruction. It goes towards negativity. The world brings in a lot of negativity. There's a lot of pain that the world tries to feed us to think about. There's a lot of fear that the world tries to feed us, right? So it's important to have that awareness. You have to guide this, because if you just let the world around you guide your thinking, you're going to end up in a place where you're miserable, you're alone, you're fearful, you don't even know what's going on. right? It's a very painful place to be. It's a lonely place. Instead of having positive building thoughts, creative thoughts, joyful thoughts, and happiness and contentment in your life, it'll this, the world around us, especially in this immediate circumstance we find ourselves in, really is damaging if we aren't careful around it. Aimlessness is a vice. Now, when I read that, excuse me, I don't know if I believed it or if I really understood what it was intending. But now I know it to be true, because the more I allow my brain and my thoughts to just go wherever they go, and I don't take responsibility, accountability for those things, I'm really not fully taking responsibility and accountability for myself, right? It's a vice. It's a distraction. It allows me to have something to blame, right? It really is a damaging habit to have, to allow your mind just to run wild wherever it wants to go. When through some effort and some intention, you can craft a way of thinking and craft a mind that will allow you to create and build something you didn't know was possible. But instead, we don't want to take the responsibility of those things. We want to blame the world for the way we are. At least that's how I used to be. I wanted to blame the world. I didn't want to think that it was my fault. But as I've practiced these principles and practiced this new habit and disciplines, it's such a blessing to be able to take responsibility for those things, take responsibility for my own health, for my own mental health, for the way I think, what I have in my mind. It makes a whole lot of difference. So it helps me steer clear of catastrophe and destruction. That's like the baseline that it'll do for you if you actually try to change this stuff. They who have no central purpose in their life fall easy prey to petty worries, fears, troubles, and self-pityings, all of which are indications of weakness, which lead, just as surely as deliberately planned sins, though by different route, to failure, unhappiness, and loss. For weakness cannot persist in a power-evolving universe. This aimlessness gives you a sense of we were just talking about it. Petty worries, fears, troubles, and self-pityings, all of which are indications of weakness, which lead just as surely as deliberately planned sin. So all of these side effects of having an aimless mind, a undirected mind, will lead to failure, unhappiness, and love. It's a direct correlation. You are not taking responsibility for the life you're living. You're not taking responsibility for the thoughts you're thinking and the direction and perspective you're holding. And that will always lead to failure, unhappiness, and loss. Every time. A man should conceive of a legitimate purpose in his heart and set out to accomplish it. A legitimate purpose, something real, something attainable, something he can do, something that would push him to strive for better. He should make this purpose the centralizing point of his thoughts. This is like some might say this sounds like he's telling you to become obsessed with it. And that might not be the wrong phrasing. That might be completely what he's saying. Make this the centralizing point of your thoughts. Find a purpose. That could be, and I'm not talking about in the lost, in the self-help world today, which I understand this is considered self-help too, but there's people go find your purpose. There's books written on just finding purpose. Just pick something. The world will tell you if you're in the right slot. The analysis paralysis that occurs when people are trying to go through this is painful. Trying to find the right purpose That is a cop out at the end of the day. Trying to find the right purpose. Pick a purpose and go towards it. And life has a funny way of correcting your alignment if it's not where you're supposed to be going. If it doesn't fit with your personality. Find one that you care about at least a little bit and just start going towards it. It'll start bringing changes and understandings and perspectives, and you'll find either clarity or reassurance that you picked the right thing, or you picked a thing worth pursuing. There's a lot of things that are worth pursuing that don't have to be an emblazoned passion in your heart, that can just be being of service and helping another individual in a certain capacity. But you should make it your centralizing point of his thoughts. It may take the form of a spiritual ideal, or it may be a worldly object according to his nature at the time being. Very important point here. So there's different things you can strive for. There's different purposes to have. Okay. When I first started walking this path, when I first started taking this journey, okay, my concept of achievement was material. I hadn't grown into the understanding of spiritual principle and virtue and these, what did he call them? Spiritual ideals, right? So now what I go for, my purpose and things that I pursue in my life are much different than when I started. So I'm glad he brings this perspective in. It may be a spiritual ideal or it may be a worldly object according to his nature at the time. So wherever you are is fine. Some people, when I first, because my spiritual journey started with recovery from substances and alcohol and grief and codependency and everything, right? It was material things. This was, I wanted to complete outpatient. I wanted to complete probation. I wanted to complete the halfway house I was in. I wanted to get a part-time job. I wanted to complete community service hours, right? These are very tangible things, very material things, right? I wanted to get my license. I wanted to get a car. I wanted to get my own apartment, right? Hell, it could have been at some points it was a relationship. That was before I handled all the codependency stuff, but still, that's where I was at the time. So I'm stressing to you, this will change and this will evolve. So trying to pick the exact right thing that has the most spiritual integrity to it. If you're just starting out on this journey, I guarantee you won't pick the same type of stuff in 5 years as you are right now. And that's okay. But having a purpose, something you're working towards, gives you motivation and it lets you discipline yourself towards that purpose. And that is so important. So important. But whichever it is, he should steadily focus his thought forces upon the object that he has set before him. He should steadily focus his thought forces upon the object he has set before him. So you're devoting yourself to this thing. You're devoting yourself to this purpose that you've chosen. Whether, get a new car. It could be make $1 million if you want to. It won't be spiritually fulfilling. It'll be materialistically fulfilling. When you get it, you'll be ecstatic about it, but you'll be on to the next thing. So make it what you need it to be right now. But I can tell you, as you go through and you start achieving things, it will change. So that's okay. He should make this purpose his supreme duty. He should devote himself to its attainment, not allowing his thoughts to wander away into ephemeral fancies, longings, and imaginings. Don't daydream about stuff, right? We need our dreamers. We're going to go over that later in another chapter. We need our dreamers. We need our idealists, really. But when you're pursuing a purpose, when you're envisioning your purpose, you need to go after that. You need to pursue that, right? We get so distracted with the material pleasures and the just distractions in general that are made available to us, whether that's drinking, whether that's drugging, whether that's social media, whether that's gossiping, lying, buying things, extravagant trips just to escape the life you can't stand, right? There's a lot of things that can distract us along the way. What James Allen is saying is don't let yourself succumb to these distractions, right? Pursue your purpose with all thoughts. Make all of your decisions around this purpose, right? You're going to, what's amazing is you're going to end up building so much character. You'll end up building so much discipline because of this. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing that you come across. Not allowing his thoughts to wander away into ephemeral fancies, longings, and imaginings, right? Like, we're not talking about some daydream that you have here, some impractical, unrealistic thought process that you wish would come true for you and just happen. You don't have to actually put any of the work in. Be present, be here, be intentional, be decisive with your pursuit of purpose. And see what happens. Trust me, it's a wild ride. This is the road. Here we go. This is exactly what I was talking about. This is the royal road to self-control and true concentration of thought. Even if he fails again and again to accomplish his purpose, as he necessarily must until weakness is overcome, the strength of character gained will be the measure of his true success. And this will form a new starting point for future power and triumph. This is exactly what I'm talking about. The side effect of pursuing a purpose, the side effect of devoting yourself to the attainment of something, whether that's a material thing like we've talked about, or it could be spiritual things, to be completely honest with yourself and others, to be loving, to be forgiving, to be of fit spiritual condition, right? That could be devoted to prayer and meditation, right? You could be, developing meditation could be something that you wanted to attain, right? Something you want to work towards. Like, that's why I say in the beginning of this, just pick something and go. Just pick something and go. Because what you are truly gaining here are these three things: true concentration of thought, self-control, and strength of character. Because you will be able to prioritize your values, what you're going for, what you're striving for, and then make that your utmost point of importance. And you'll learn how to make hard decisions and have self-control and change your behavioral patterns to accomplish something, right? So just pick something and go towards it. You'll get this character, you'll develop these skill sets that you can go. And after you get that first thing, you can use it again to get the next thing, right? And then the type of things you will pursue change. It's incredible. He's right. The strength of character gained will be the measure of your true success. How completely can you pursue this purpose? How completely can you develop this character? Right? It's a reward. It is a measure of success that I didn't realize I was going to get. I have been able to develop quite a well-oiled machine of discipline when I need to, and when I'm going after something and I'm pursuing something. And thank God for that. And that's from these small goals and then continuing to pursue these things. These small, I don't really like the goals thing because it's just so overused in today's society and the therapeutic communities and everything else. So these little objective purposes. That's what we're talking about. Those who are not prepared for the apprehension of a great purpose, like we're not talking about. So if you're not ready to go change the world just quite yet, which is fair, should fix their thoughts upon the faultless performance of their duty, no matter how insignificant their task may appear. Only in this way can the thoughts be gathered and focused, and resolution and energy be developed, which being done, there is nothing which he may not accomplish. So he's saying if you don't have this grand purpose yet, if you don't even have the ability to pick something materially you want to make your purpose to achieve, the best thing you can do is a faultless performance of your duty. That means if you have a job right now, you pursue that. You do that job, every little thing about that job to the best of your ability. It doesn't matter if you like that job. It doesn't matter if you like some of the parts about that job and dislike the rest. You perform your duties to the utmost of your ability. So we're talking about at your job, at your home, in your relationship, to your families. Perform your duties impeccably, faultlessly, right? Faultless performance of their duty, no matter how insignificant the task may appear. I say this often, and I believe it with every fiber of my being to be true. The little things matter. James Allen talks about this in a lot of different books. It's the little things that make up the entirety of the big things. Everyone thinks, well, I'm just going to be selfish here. These things don't really matter. When the big things come along, I'll be unselfish, and that's what I need to do. Or whatever context you want to use. These little things that you don't think make an impact do. In those little areas, you're practicing lying to yourself. In those little areas, you're practicing being deceptive and dishonest. In those little areas, you're practicing being selfish. Those little areas, you're practicing not performing to the best of your ability. You're settling with good enough. That was good enough is your aim. Everything matters. Every insignificant thing matters that you do. And doing this and focusing on and the faultless performance of duty that he says will bring you resolution and energy, focus, which is what is needed, right? That we're talking about. Those are parts of the strength of character. Those are parts of the concentration of thought, the self-control, right? You do the things faultlessly, even the ones you don't want to do, because they're tasks placed in front of you that need to be done. You develop discipline through these things. The weakest soul, knowing its own weakness and believing this truth, that strength can only be developed by effort and practice, will, thus believing it, at once begin to exert itself, and adding effort to effort, patience to patience, and strength to strength, will never cease to develop and will at last grow divinely strong. So even the weakest person, even the weakest willed person, when they do these things and they fail, but they continue to grow and learn from these failures, it's because it's not a true failure if you're learning from them, right? If you're pursuing a purpose, you don't ever actually fail, you only learn. So, and then you grow and you have a better footing. That's what we talked about earlier in this. You have a better understanding established and a better skill set to perform it and a better discipline to perform it because you did not accomplish it once. So you've learned how to not do it, which is really a step in the direction of learning how to do it. So if you effort to effort, practice to practice, what was the other one? Strength to strength. If you make these points and if you continue to grow and live and you make these efforts and you continue to practice these things and don't get disheartened, but know you are growing and you're developing as you're doing it, even the weakest, how do you open the paragraph up? The weakest soul will at last grow divinely strong. There's no way you can't. You can't not grow. Can't not grow. Yes. If you're taking these steps and making these efforts, it's extremely important to realize that it's the attempting and it is the putting yourself forward to do that eventually you will. There's no way you can't grow. And he gives a comparison in this one. As the physically weak man can make himself strong by careful and patient training, so the man of weak thoughts can make them strong by exercising himself in right thinking. So if you go and you do weightlifting and you go to a gym and you just keep showing up and you keep learning and developing a workout routine for yourself and putting on more and more weight, you will develop physical strength. There's no way you can't. Even if you're doing these things poorly, you might hurt yourself, you might do this, you might do that, but you will still be developing strength of some sort. You might eventually learn better ways to develop this strength. You might learn how inefficient you were being, right? You'll learn what you didn't know, but that comes through this pursuit, through this practice, through this effort, through this strength. So to put away aimlessness and weakness and to begin to think with purpose is to enter the ranks of those strong ones who only recognize failure as one of the pathways to attainment and who make all conditions serve them. Let me say that again. All conditions serve them. And who think strongly, attempt fearlessly, and accomplish masterfully. What a beautiful way to say that. Think strongly, attempt fearlessly, and accomplish masterfully. And I emphasized in that paragraph, make all conditions serve them, right? There's so much in that paragraph. Enter into the rankings of the strong ones who only recognize failure as one of the pathways to attainment. That's what I was talking a little bit about beforehand. It's not a true failure because if you learn, you understand, and then you reapply, you didn't get it that time. But the true failure only comes in a lack of pursuit and a lack of perseverance. When you stop trying, when you stop putting effort, strength, and practice in, is there a true failure? Everything else serves you. Everything else allows you to grow in strength and understanding and character, right? So when we go forward here, you don't have failure to be scared of because you don't need it to be perfect out the gate. You allow yourself to have failure in there so you can actually grow and understand because it's not a true failure. You allow yourself to have an experience of learning while you're doing this, right? You can still call it failure because people don't like the word. It's really all it is. They think they means that they're a failure. And it's just, that attempt failed, but you learn from it and keep going, right? This is the true sense of failure, the true sense of inadequacy only comes when you stop trying to engage in that development, right? Because failure is just a word. We've just added so much negativity and stigma around it and our own perspective and thoughts as to what it actually means, right? So if you devote yourself to the purpose, failure is just a stepping stone. You make all situations serve you and what you need in them or what you are going to learn from them, right? Like there isn't, because you've devoted yourself entirely, right, to these things. You've absolutely devoted yourself to the growth of this stuff, right, to the pursuit of this purpose. So everything all situations you can find yourself in, all circumstances that you create for yourself, you will have a more effective understanding and of how to make that situation serve you. So I love that paragraph. And also attempt fearlessly because you're not, what are you going to do? Be scared to learn? Having conceived of his purpose, a man should mentally mark out a straight pathway to its achievement, looking neither to the right or left. Now, so say, I want to get there. This is how I can do it. Find out what that looks like. Find those steps, right? It won't go that straight, I'm sure. Right? It usually doesn't, especially in the beginning, because there's a lot of stuff to learn. But making that attempt, right? Making that pathway to get there is important. Don't look right or left. Now he's going to tell you what right or left is. Doubts and fears should be rigorously excluded. They are disintegrating elements which break up the straight line of effort, rendering it crooked, ineffectual, useless. Thoughts of doubt and fear can never accomplish anything and never can. They always lead to failure. Purpose, energy, power to do. And all strong thoughts cease when doubt and fear creep in. Doubt and fear is just mental games you play with yourself. Doubt and fear are the corroding elements. Is that what he called it? Right? Disintegrating elements. They're corrosive to your plans. They block you up in your tracks every single time. Now, I'm not saying that they won't show up. They show up for me still today. I acknowledge them and then do anyway. Just some examples. This podcast, just in and of itself, there's a lot of doubt and fear around that. What is it going to look like? What are people going to think about it? Is it going to be a good response? Are people going to actually listen to it? Anything, right? I can come up with anything. I acknowledged it and did it anyway. I won't let that stop me anymore. I won't let those things rob me of the opportunity to see what could potentially happen and to see who this potentially might help. Because of what? My own doubt and fear? Some self-centeredness that shows up? Those have robbed me of so many positive things in my life already. And I refuse to let it do it anymore. So don't compensate for them. Because anything that you build around fear, first of all, the fear's still there. And secondly, you're just waiting for it to happen, right? You're just waiting for it to implode on itself. Because it will, every time. Every time it will implode. The will to do springs from the knowledge that we can do. Let me read that again. The will to do springs from the knowledge that we can do. You have to believe you can do something. Because if you can't believe that it's possible for you, you're going to subconsciously do things that don't allow it to happen, right? Like there is a I guess I'll just say it differently than this. The belief that it's possible, regardless of not knowing the details, regardless of not even being able to do it before, but believe that you might be able to, or that you are able to, you're just not sure how yet, is hugely important. You don't have to have all the answers right now. What would the journey be if you had all the answers, right? That's what this learning is about. But being able to truly believe that you have the ability to achieve something, the ability that you can do something, is everything. The details work themselves out. Doubt and fear are great enemies of knowledge, and he who encourages them, who does not slay them, thwarts himself at every step, right? Because we rob ourselves of the opportunity to even learn past these things. We rob ourselves of the opportunity to gain the information needed to achieve if we don't even believe we can, right? So you need to at least have the belief to give yourself the space to make progress towards this purpose. And it seems to be exponential when you at least give yourself the space and the breath to do that, is what I found. You'll start building a confidence in yourself and a deeper and more firmly held belief in yourself as well. He who has conquered doubt and fear has conquered failure. His every thought is allied with power, and all difficulties are bravely met and wisely overcome. His purposes are seasonably planted, and they bloom and bring forth fruit which does not fall prematurely to the ground. I love that. He who has conquered doubt and fear has conquered failure. Because it's not a failure anymore. We talked about it. It's learning, it's opportunity, it's growth, it's progress. It's not this failure of being human, right? Not this failure of being. So he who has conquered doubt and fear, every thought is allied with power, and all difficulties are bravely met and wisely overcome. If you have this doubt and your fear running in your life, you're not going to actually engage in these things, let alone believe you can overcome these things, right? You shut yourself down before you even get there. His purposes are seasonably planted, and they bloom and bring forth fruit which does not fall prematurely to the ground, right? So you start taking the appropriate actions when you need to take them, and you get the appropriate reaping. You get the appropriate consequences or effects of your actions because you're doing the right thing. You're executing at the right time because you're not letting fear and doubt hold you back. It seems so simple to say it like that, but the reality of it is that simple. It really is that simple. Now, I love this. This is the last paragraph of this chapter. I had to check how long this video has been. Thought, allied fearlessly to purpose, becomes creative force. Everyone wants to know how to be creative. Thought, allied fearlessly with purpose, becomes creative force. So when you're trying to achieve something, accomplish a goal, and that could be speaking a truth, that could be delivering a message, that becomes creative force. The desire to achieve a purpose, to move towards a purpose, to move towards these goals, that becomes creative force because you have where you want to be and you have where you are. So it's an inspiration to the creative side of us to create a solution, to create that message, to create whatever it is. He who knows this, knows is in italics, thought allied fearlessly to purpose becomes creative force. He who knows this, is ready to become something higher, stronger than mere bundle of wavering thoughts and fluctuating sensations. So if you know this, right, that there's such energy and power in striving towards this purpose, right? If you know this, you're prepared to achieve something higher and stronger. Now, he who does, in italics, this has become the conscious and intelligent wielder of his mental powers. This thing, incredibly powerful. Absolutely incredibly powerful. It's got more in there than you could even realize, I believe. Don't short yourself. When you use the fullest capacity of your mind to achieve a purpose, you will be amazed at the things that come to you, that the effect your mind can have, that the strength and creative force that it can come up with. It's your mind is a beautiful thing. And you've been given one to use. Use it. Become the intelligent wielder of your mental powers. Because this is a power. This is a force, guys. There is so much that you can do with this thing. In conclusion, this chapter is literally about pick a purpose, go towards it. If you really can't pick something, just do your day-to-day stuff to the best of your ability to develop the focus and the energy and the concentration of thought to be able to pursue a purpose when one is presented, and you finally have the belief that you can actually go after it. Let your pursuit of a purpose discipline you so you can become more effective and you become that individual with a strength of character you never knew was possible. So, love that chapter. Absolutely loved that chapter. Thank you all again for joining me. I really greatly appreciate it. And I am looking forward to reading the next chapter to you. And that one is called The Thought Factor in Achievement. It's a page longer than this one. Equally as substantial, equally as important as thought and purpose. And I believe you're going to really like that one too. So I appreciate everyone jumping on and coming along with me for the ride. It's always an exciting time. And we got a new camera, by the way, so the video quality hopefully will be better for y'all. And we will go from there. So I'm glad to be back. And I'm looking forward to hearing y'all's input on this one. So don't hesitate to reach out and let us know. So thanks. Until next time.